The bridge of the UHSN times Defiant times was quiet except for the steady hum of the engines. Captain Minho Park sat in his command chair, staring at the star field displayed on the main screen. His ship was 3 days into a routine patrol along the outer rim of human territory. Nothing ever happened out here. That was the point. The frontier was supposed to be peaceful. The alarm shattered the silence. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," said Hana Yoon from the communications station. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "It's from New Haven Colony." Minho sat up straight. New Haven was a farming colony with 50,000 people. Families, children. People who had left Earth to build a new life among the stars. "Put it through," Minho ordered. The voice that came through was panicked and broken by static. "This is New Haven Colony to any human ships in range. We are under attack. I repeat, we are under attack. The Krev Empire has sent a fleet. They say they're going to destroy us as a warning to humanity. We have no defenses. Please, if anyone can hear this." The transmission cut off. The bridge crew turned to look at Minho. He could see the fear in their eyes. Everyone knew about the Krev Empire. They had conquered dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Their military was legendary. They were brutal, efficient, and they never lost. "How many ships?" Minho asked quietly. Lieutenant Ji-won Kim checked her tactical display. Her face went pale. "Sir, our long-range sensors are picking up the Krev fleet. 200 warships. They're holding position just outside the colony's orbit. Known Weiss. 200 ships." Minho felt his stomach drop. The times, Defiant times, was alone. One ship against an entire armada. "Where's the nearest human fleet?" he asked. 2 weeks away, sir." Ji-won replied. "Even if we send a message right now, they can't reach the colony in time." Minho did the math in his head. The times, Defiant times, could reach New Haven in 3 days if they pushed the engines hard. But what could one ship do against 200? The answer was simple. Nothing. One ship would be destroyed in minutes. "Sir, standing orders are clear," said Commander Daehyun Song, the first officer. "If we encounter overwhelming enemy forces, we're supposed to retreat and wait for backup." Minho knew he was right. The smart thing to do was turn around. Save the ship. Save the crew. Let the colony die while following protocol. He thought about the 50,000 people on New Haven. Farmers, teachers, doctors, children, people who trusted that humanity would protect them. "Get me a course to New Haven," Minho said. "Maximum speed." The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at him. "Sir," Daehyun said carefully. "Did you hear the numbers? 200 Krev warships. We're one ship. This is suicide." "I heard the numbers, Commander," Minho said. His voice was calm but firm. "I also heard 50,000 people begging for help. Plot the course." "Captain, please think about this," Daehyun pleaded. "We can't save them. All we'll do is add our names to the casualty list." Minho stood up and walked to the tactical display. He studied the star map, the position of the Krev fleet, the location of New Haven. His mind was already working through possibilities, strategies, desperate gambits. "When I joined the military, I took an oath," Minho said quietly. "I swore to protect human colonies. I didn't swear to protect them only when it was safe. I didn't swear to protect them only when we had enough ships." He turned to face his crew. "Those people down there are counting on us. Maybe we can't win. Maybe we'll all die trying, but I'd rather die fighting than live knowing I abandoned them." Ji-won was the first to respond. She straightened in her chair and nodded. "Course plotted. Captain. Ready on your order." Taeyong Choi, the ship's pilot, grinned. "Hell, I didn't join the military to live forever. Let's go make some noise." Yuna Lee, the chief engineer, spoke up from her station. "I'll get you every bit of speed these engines can handle, Captain. And then some." One by one, the crew members nodded their agreement. Even Daehyun, though he still looked worried, took his position. "All hands, this is the captain," Minho announced over the ship-wide intercom. We've received a distress call from New Haven Colony. They're under attack by a Krev fleet. We're the only ship close enough to help. I won't lie to you, the odds are bad. Really bad. But those are our people down there. If anyone wants to object, speak now. He waited. The intercom was silent, except for the ambient noise of the ship. Then, from engineering, a voice called out, "Let's show these aliens what humans are made of." Cheers erupted from different sections of the ship. Minho felt a surge of pride. His crew was ready to follow him into hell itself. Jiwan, send a message to New Haven, Minho ordered. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to hold on for 3 days. Yes, sir, Jiwan replied. Taeyang, take us to jump speed. Yuna, I want those engines running at 110%. On it, Captain, Taeyang said. His hands danced across the flight controls. The Times, Defiant Times, turned away from its patrol route and accelerated toward New Haven. The stars stretched and blurred as the ship entered faster than light travel. For 3 days, they would race across space toward an impossible battle. Minho returned to his command chair. He pulled up everything the human military knew about Krev tactics on his personal display. It wasn't much. The Krev rarely fought humans. They considered humanity too young, too weak, to be worth their time. That might be humanity's only advantage. Surprise. Jiwan approached his chair quietly. Sir, can I ask you something? Go ahead, Lieutenant. Do you actually think we can win this? Minho considered the question. He could lie, give her false hope. But she deserved honesty. No, he admitted. Against 200 ships, we can't win a straight fight. But we don't need to win. We just need to buy time. Create chaos, make them think twice. The Krev are used to enemies who surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They've never fought humans before. They don't know how we think. They don't know that we never give up. Jiwan smiled slightly. You have a plan? The beginning of one, Minho said. We have 3 days to work out the details. Get me everything you can find about Krev fleet formations, communication protocols, and ship capabilities. I want to know every weakness they have. Yes, sir. Jiwan returned to her station, already pulling up files. For 3 days, the Times Defiant Times flew toward New Haven, while the crew prepared for battle. Minho barely slept. He studied every battle in human history, looking for tactics that might work against a superior force. Ancient battles where small armies defeated large ones. Naval engagements where clever captains outsmarted enemy fleets. Yuna worked miracles in engineering, modifying weapons, boosting shields, preparing surprises that might give them an edge. Taeyang practiced emergency maneuvers until he could execute them in his sleep. Jiwan created simulation after simulation, trying to find a path to survival. On the 3rd day, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Haven system. Sensors, Minho ordered. Confirmed, Jiwan said, her voice tight. 200 Krev warships in formation around the colony. They're not attacking yet. It looks like they're waiting. Waiting for what? I'm picking up a transmission from the Krev flagship. They're broadcasting to the colony. They're giving them 1 hour to evacuate. After that, they'll destroy everything. Minho understood immediately. The Krev wanted the colonists to spread the word, to tell other human colonies what happened. Fear was a weapon. How long until they can detect us? Minho asked. We're at the edge of their sensor range, Jiwan replied. Maybe 10 minutes before they notice us. Minho made his decision. Taeyang, take us in. Full speed. Jiwan, charge all weapons. Yuna, I want shields at maximum, sir, Daehyun said. They're going to see us coming. Good, Minho replied. I want them to see us. I want them to know that one human ship had the courage to face them. The Times, Defiant Times, accelerated toward the Krev fleet. On the main screen, the enemy ships appeared as tiny dots that grew larger with each passing second. 200 warships, each one bigger than the Times Defiant asterisk. Each one armed with enough firepower to level a city. They've detected us, Jiwan announced. We're receiving a transmission from the Krev flagship. Let's hear it, Minho said. The face that appeared on screen was alien but recognizable. Admiral Vorak of the Krev Empire. His skin was gray, his eyes cold and calculating. Human vessel, this is Admiral Vorak. You have entered a combat zone. Turn back immediately, or be destroyed. This is your only warning. Minho stood up and faced the screen. Admiral Vorak, this is Captain Minho Park of the UHSN Times Defiant Asterisk. That colony is under human protection. Leave now, or face the consequences. For a moment, Vorak looked surprised. Then he laughed. It was a cruel, mocking sound. One ship, Vorak said, still laughing. You brought one ship against my entire fleet. You humans are either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which. You're about to find out, Minho said calmly. He cut the transmission. All stations, battle ready. Minho ordered. G1, target their flagship. Taeyang, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Yuna, I hope those modifications are ready. Ready as they'll ever be? Captain, Yuna replied from engineering. Minho sat back down in his command chair. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. This was it. One human ship against an entire fleet. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. They never backed down. G1, Minho said quietly. Fire when ready. The first missiles launched from the Times, Defiant Times, with a flash of blue light. They streaked across the black void of space, toward Admiral Vorak's flagship. The Krev shields flared as the weapons struck, but the massive ship barely moved. It would take hundreds of missiles to damage a ship that size. But Minho wasn't trying to destroy the flagship. He was making a statement. Direct hit on the flagship's forward shields, G1 reported. No significant damage, but we definitely got their attention. Good, Minho said. Taeyang, bring us about. Heading 273. Full speed. The Times, Defiant Times, turned sharply and accelerated away from the Krev fleet. On the tactical display, Minho watched as the enemy formation began to react. 50 Krev ships breaking formation, G1 announced. They're pursuing us. Exactly as planned, Minho muttered. He studied the tactical screen carefully. 50 ships. That was manageable. Well, not manageable, but better than 200. Admiral Vorak's voice came through the communications channel. He sounded angry now, not amused. You dare attack my flagship and then run? You humans have no honor. Minho ignored him. Honor was a luxury for people who weren't trying to save 50,000 lives. Yuna, how are the engines holding up? Running at 115% capacity, Yuna replied from engineering. I can give you maybe 2 hours at this speed before we risk a meltdown. That'll be enough, Minho said. He hoped he was right. The Times, Defiant Times, raced through space with 50 Krev warships in pursuit. To the enemy, it looked like a damaged ship fleeing in panic. Minho had ordered Yuna to modify their engine emissions to make it seem like they were losing power. The Krev took the bait. They accelerated, eager to catch their prey. How long until we reach the debris field? Minho asked. 3 minutes, Taeyang replied. His eyes were locked on his controls, hands ready to react to any threat. 3 years ago, a massive battle had taken place in this system. 2 alien civilizations had destroyed each other here, leaving behind thousands of destroyed ships. The debris field stretched for millions of kilometers, broken hulls, dead engines, shattered weapons systems, all drifting in space like a graveyard. Sir, the Krev are closing to weapons range, G1 warned. They're targeting our engines. Let them shoot, Minho said calmly. Divert power from forward shields to engines. Make it look like we're desperate to escape. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge as Krev weapons fire struck the Times Defiant Times rear shields. The ship shuddered from the impact. Shields at 70%, G1 reported. Hold course, Minho ordered. More weapons fire. The ship shook harder. Crew members grabbed onto their consoles to stay upright. Shields at 50%. Entering debris field in 10 seconds, Taeyang announced. Minho gripped the arms of his command chair. This was the critical moment. Everything depended on the next few minutes. 9, 8, 7. The Krev ships were getting closer, firing continuously. They thought they had won. They thought the human ship was finished. 3, 2, 1, entering debris field now. The defiant times plunged into the maze of destroyed ships. Broken metal and shattered hulls surrounded them on all sides. Taeyang's hands moved like lightning across his controls, weaving the ship through gaps that seemed impossibly small. The ship tilted and rolled, dodging debris that could tear through their hull. Behind them, the 50 Krev ships followed. But the Krev vessels were bigger, less maneuverable. They couldn't match the defiance agility. Now, Taeyang, Minho shouted. Full reverse thrust. Taeyang slammed the controls. The defiant spun around in space, engines firing at maximum power to kill their forward momentum. For a heart-stopping moment, the ship hung motionless in the debris field. The Krev ships, traveling at high speed, couldn't stop in time. They tried to turn, tried to brake, but it was too late. The lead ships slammed into debris at full velocity. Metal screamed, hulls cracked. Explosions bloomed in the darkness like deadly flowers. Direct hits, Ji-won called out. 8 Krev ships destroyed. 12 more heavily damaged. But there was no time to celebrate. The remaining Krev ships were recovering, adjusting their formation. Ji-won now, Minho ordered. Ji-won had been working on something special for the past hour. She had hacked into the Krev communication network while they were chasing the defiant asterisk. Now she activated her program. False sensor data flooded the Krev ships' computers. Their tactical displays suddenly showed 20 human warships surrounding them. The phantom ships appeared out of nowhere, weapons charged and ready. Chaos erupted in the Krev formation. Ships turned to face threats that didn't exist. They fired at sensor ghosts, wasting ammunition on empty space. Their communication channels filled with confused shouts and conflicting orders. It's working, Ji-won said with fierce satisfaction. They're shooting at shadows. They're shooting at shadows. Minho allowed himself a small smile. Taeyang, take us through the center of their formation. Ji-won, target their command ships. I want their officers too busy surviving to think clearly. The defiant dove into the confused Krev formation like a shark among fish. Taeyang piloted the ship with incredible precision, weaving between enemy vessels that were too disorganized to coordinate their fire. When Krev ships did manage to shoot, they hit each other as often as they hit the defiant asterisk. Ji-won's targeting was surgical. She focused on the bridge sections of Krev command ships, the places where their officers would be. The defiance weapons weren't powerful enough to destroy these large vessels quickly, but they could cripple communication systems, damage sensor arrays, create fear and confusion. 3 more Krev ships exploded when their damaged reactors overloaded. 5 others collided with debris or with each other in the chaos. Captain, the rest of the Krev fleet is moving toward our position, Ji-won reported. Admiral Vorak is sending reinforcements. Minho checked the tactical display. The main Krev fleet was leaving its position around New Haven Colony. Good. That was what he wanted. The longer they chased the defiant asterisk, the more time the colonists had to evacuate. Time to leave, Minho said. Taeyang, get us out of here. Heading 186. Yuna, I need jump engines ready in 5 minutes. You're pushing it, Captain, Yuna warned. The engines are already stressed. I know, do your best. The defiant broke away from the debris field and accelerated into open space. Behind them, the surviving Krev ships regrouped and continued their pursuit. But they were more cautious now. They had learned that chasing this human ship was dangerous. Minho used the 5 minutes to contact New Haven Colony. A woman's face appeared on screen. She looked terrified. This is Captain Park of the defiant asterisk, Minho said quickly. How many people have you evacuated? Maybe 10,000 so far, the woman replied. But Captain, there are still 40,000 people here. We don't have enough transport ships. Minho's jaw tightened. 10,000 saved, 40,000 still at risk. Not good enough. Keep evacuating, he ordered. Get every ship you have off the ground. Use cargo vessels, personal shuttles. Anything that can fly. I'll buy you as much time as I can. How? The woman asked. You're just one ship. One is all you need if it's the right ship, Minho replied. He ended the transmission. Jump engines ready, Yuna announced. Jump now, Minho ordered. Coordinates in the ship's computer. Space twisted around the time's defiant asterisk. The ship vanished from one location and reappeared 50,000 kilometers away, near a massive gas giant that dominated this system. The pursuing Krev ships would need several minutes to reach them. Why are we here, sir? Daehyun asked. Because 3 days ago, I ordered some cargo ships to drop a present for us, Minho explained. Yuna, activate the mines. Buried in the upper atmosphere of the gas giant were 24 military mines that Minho had arranged to have placed there. They were old models, scheduled for decommissioning. Minho had found a better use for them. Mines active and ready, Captain, Yuna confirmed. The Krev fleet arrived, surrounding the gas giant. Admiral Vorak's face appeared on screen again. He looked furious. Enough games, human. You've destroyed 30 of my ships, damaged 20 more, but you cannot win. Surrender now, and I promise you a quick death. I've got a better idea, Minho replied. How about you leave our colony alone? Never, Vorak roared. You will. Minho cut the transmission and turned to Jiwon. Detonate the mines. The mines hidden in the gas giant's atmosphere exploded in a carefully timed sequence. The explosions triggered a chain reaction in the planet's highly charged upper atmosphere. Energy cascaded through the gas layers, building and building until it reached critical mass. A massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from the planet, like a wave of invisible fire. It washed over the Krev fleet in seconds. The pulse didn't destroy the ships, but it fried their electronic systems. Lights went dark. Engines died. Weapons systems shut down. 40 Krev ships went silent, drifting helplessly in space. Status? Minho asked. The pulse knocked out their primary systems, Jiwon reported. They'll need at least an hour to reboot everything. The ships further away avoided most of the effect, and are falling back. Minho nodded. An hour. That gave the colony more time, but the time's defiant times hadn't escaped unscathed. Warning alarms blared across the bridge. Captain, we took damage from the pulse, Yuna reported urgently. Our weapons systems are down to 30% effectiveness. Life support is failing on 4 decks. And... She hesitated. We've lost 8 crew members. Sections 7 through 9 vented atmosphere before we could seal the bulkheads. The bridge went quiet. 8 people dead. 8 crew members who had followed Minho into this impossible battle. Minho closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of their loss. Then he opened them again. He couldn't stop now. Not while 40,000 colonists still needed him. Seal off the damaged sections, he ordered quietly. Transfer the casualties to Medical Bay. We'll honor them properly when this is over. He turned to Jiwon. How long until the main Krev fleet regroups? 20 minutes, sir. Then we have 20 minutes to rest. Minho said. All stations. Take a breath. Eat something. We're not done yet. He sat back in his command chair and allowed himself to feel the exhaustion. They had destroyed or disabled nearly 80 Krev ships. Against impossible odds, they had fought and survived, but 120 enemy warships remained. The Times, Defiant Times, was damaged, running low on ammunition, and barely holding together. And yet, Minho thought, they were still flying, still fighting. That had to count for something. Taeyang turned from his console. Captain, that was some of the craziest flying I've ever done. Where did you learn tactics like that? Human history, Minho replied. Thousands of years of warfare taught us one important lesson. When you're outnumbered, you have to be smarter, faster, and willing to take risks that terrify your enemy. It's working, Jiwan added. I've been monitoring Krev communications. They're afraid of us now. They're calling us demons. Minho smiled grimly. Good. Let them be afraid. Fear was a weapon too. 4 hours had passed since the battle began. The Times, Defiant Times, was still alive, but barely. Minho stood at the tactical display, studying the enemy formation. 120 Krev ships remained operational. They had reorganized into a tight defensive sphere, learning from their earlier mistakes. Status report, Minho said quietly. Yuna's voice came through from engineering. She sounded exhausted. Weapons at 30%. Shields are holding, but they won't survive another major assault. Life support is stable on main decks, but we've had to seal off 8 compartments. Hull breaches on 3 decks. And Captain, she paused. We have maybe 2 more hours of combat capability before critical systems start failing. 2 hours. Minho checked the data from New Haven Colony. 25,000 people evacuated so far. That left 25,000 still on the surface. They needed more time. Jiwan, what's the enemy doing? Minho asked. They're being careful now. Jiwan replied. Admiral Vorak has learned his lesson. They're maintaining formation, keeping their distance, scanning for traps. They're trying to figure out what we'll do next. Minho understood the situation. The Krev had superior numbers and firepower. Time was on their side. All they had to do was wait for the Times, Defiant Times, to fall apart on its own, or they could simply bypass the human ship and destroy the colony. But Vorak wasn't doing either of those things. Why? Hana, have you intercepted any Krev communications? Minho asked. Hana Yoon, the communications officer, nodded. Yes, sir. They're arguing among themselves. Some officers want to retreat. They say they've already taken too many losses and should call this a victory. Others want to finish us off, to restore their honor. Minho felt a spark of hope. The enemy was divided. That was good. That was something he could use. What's Admiral Vorak saying? He's ordered them to maintain position, Hana replied. He's obsessed with destroying us personally. I think we've damaged more than his ships, we've damaged his reputation. In Krev culture, a commander who loses this many vessels to one enemy becomes a laughing stock. Perfect, Minho thought. Vorak was thinking emotionally now, not tactically. An angry enemy made mistakes. Hana, can you hack their communications network again? I can try, sir. They've upgraded their security after Lieutenant Jiwan's last attack. But I might be able to get through. Do it. I want to send them a message. But not through normal channels. I want it to look like it's coming from within their own fleet. Hana worked at her console for several minutes. Finally, she nodded. I'm in, Captain. What do you want me to send? Minho thought carefully about his next move. The Krev fleet was fractured between officers who wanted to retreat and those who wanted to fight. He needed to widen that crack. Send this message, encoded as if it's coming from one of their junior commanders, Minho instructed. Make it say, the human ship knows our formation. It has been studying our movements for hours. This is a trap. We should withdraw while we still can. Hana smiled as she understood the plan. Her fingers flew across her keyboard. Message sent, sir. It should spread through their lower ranks before their command staff can intercept it. Minutes passed. Then Jiwan spoke up. Captain, I'm seeing movement in their formation. Several ships are breaking away from the sphere. It looks like... Yes, 10 ships are pulling back. Vorak will order them back, Daehyun observed. Maybe, Minho said. But even if he does, we've planted doubt. Some of his captains are questioning his leadership. That's valuable. On the tactical display, Minho watched as Admiral Vorak's flagship moved to intercept the retreating vessels. Communications traffic spiked as the Admiral shouted orders. The 10 ships reluctantly returned to formation, but the damage was done. The Krev fleet was no longer unified. Time to push them harder, Minho said. Taeyang, take us in. Heading directly toward their flagship. Sir? Taeyang looked confused. That's suicide. They'll destroy us in seconds. Trust me, Minho said calmly. The Times, Defiant Times, accelerated toward the center of the Krev formation. Every weapon on every Krev ship tracked the human vessel. Minho knew what they were thinking finally. The human ship had made a fatal mistake. All power to forward shields, Minho ordered. And Yuna, be ready to execute Emergency Protocol 7 on my mark. Captain, that protocol is untested, Yuna protested. It could destroy the ship. Everything we've done today was untested, Minho replied. Mark, the Times, Defiant Times, drove straight at Admiral Vorak's flagship like a missile. The Krev ships opened fire. Energy beams and missiles filled space. The Times, Defiance Times shields flared white-hot as they absorbed the incredible punishment. Shields failing, Jiwan shouted over the alarms. Hold course, Minho said, his voice steady despite the ship shaking violently around them. 20%. Hold. 10%. Captain, we're going to die. Now, Yuna. Execute Protocol 7. In the engine room, Yuna activated the emergency protocol. The Times Defiance Times faster-than-light drive began to charge while the ship was still in normal space. Every regulation, every safety protocol said this was impossible. FTL drives needed careful calculations and clear space. Activating one inside a combat zone was insanity. Space itself began to twist around the Times Defiant asterisk. Reality bent and warped. The ship's hull screamed from the stress. On the bridge, displays showed impossible readings. Gravity fluctuated wildly. Time seemed to slow down and speed up simultaneously. Then, with a soundless flash that seemed to tear the universe apart, the Times, Defiant Times jumped. The ship disappeared from the center of the Krev formation and reappeared 10,000 kilometers away. But the jump had consequences. The spatial distortion it created sent a shockwave through the area where the ship had been. The shockwave slammed into the Krev vessels at the center of their formation. 6 ships simply vanished, torn apart by the spatial rift. 20 more suffered massive damage as the shockwave fried their systems and cracked their hulls. The remaining ships scattered in panic, their tight formation completely destroyed. But the Times Defiant Times paid a price too. Every system on the ship went dark. Emergency lights flickered on, casting the bridge in red shadows. The main screen was dead. Control consoles sparked and smoked. The constant hum of the engines was gone, replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by alarms and the hiss of escaping air. Minho felt blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. He couldn't remember hitting anything, but the spatial jump had been violent enough to throw everyone around. He looked at his crew. Taeyang was slumped over his console, unconscious. Jiwan was holding her left arm at an odd angle, broken. Daehyun was trying to operate a console with one hand, while using the other to stop blood flowing from a gash on his head. Status, Minho croaked. His throat felt raw. Everything's offline. Jiwan reported through gritted teeth. No engines, no weapons, no shields. Life support is running on emergency batteries. We're dead in space, Captain. Minho forced himself to stand despite the pain. Casualties? Medical Bay is reporting injuries across all decks, Hana said. She had a nasty bruise forming on her cheek. Nothing critical yet, but Taeyang needs immediate attention. 2 crew members rushed to help the pilot. Minho staggered to the tactical station and manually activated the sensor array. It took precious seconds for the damaged systems to come online, but finally, he could see the battlefield. The Krev fleet was in chaos. Their formation was completely broken. Ships drifted in all directions. Some were clearly disabled. Others were trying to reorganize but seemed confused about what to do next. And then Minho saw something that made his heart sink. New jump signatures. More Krev ships arriving? No, the signatures were wrong. Hana, identify those ships, he ordered. Hana worked at her damaged console. Her face broke into a smile. Captain, those are human vessels. It's the 3rd Fleet. They've arrived early. Through the static on the communications channel, a familiar voice came through. "This is Admiral Kyung-mi Han of the Third Fleet, to the UHSN Times Defiant Asterisk. Captain Park, sorry we're late to the party. Looks like you started without us." Relief flooded through Minho. The cavalry had arrived. He grabbed a working microphone. "Admiral Han. Good to hear your voice. The colony? Evacuation is complete, Captain. All 50,000 colonists are safe. You bought them the time they needed." Minho closed his eyes and felt the tension drain from his body. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had saved everyone. "Captain Park," Admiral Han continued, her voice becoming more formal. "You should know that we've been monitoring your battle for the past hour. I've never seen anything like what you've accomplished here. One ship against an entire fleet. It shouldn't have been possible." On the main screen, which had flickered back to partial life, Minho could see the Krev reaction. Admiral Vorak's fleet was detecting the human reinforcements. The Krev admiral was faced with a choice fight, 3 full battle groups, while his own fleet was damaged and demoralized. Or retreat. Vorak's face appeared on screen one last time. The alien commander looked at Minho with something that might have been respect, or maybe just hatred. It was hard to tell. "You fought well, human," Vorak said quietly. "Better than I expected. But this isn't over. The Krev Empire will remember what happened here. So will humanity." Minho replied. "Tell your people that we protect our own. Always." The Krev fleet turned and jumped away, vanishing into faster-than-light travel. They left behind the wreckage of 80 destroyed ships and the damaged hulks of dozens more. Admiral Vorak had started this battle with 200 warships. He was leaving with barely 100 functional vessels. Admiral Han's fleet moved into position around the Times Defiant Asterisk. "Captain, you're ordered to stand down. We're sending repair crews and medical teams to your ship. You and your crew have done enough." Minho looked around his bridge. Taeyong was being carried out on a stretcher. Jiwon sat at her station with her arm in an improvised sling, still trying to work despite the pain. Yuna's voice came through from engineering, reporting critical damage throughout the ship. Every crew member was injured, exhausted, pushed beyond their limits, but they had won. All crew. "This is the captain," Minho announced over the ship-wide intercom. "Stand down from combat status. We did it. The colony is safe. Every single person evacuated. You all performed beyond any reasonable expectation. I'm proud to serve with you." Cheers erupted from different sections of the ship, weak and tired but genuine. These people had faced death and survived. They had done the impossible. Minho sat down heavily in his command chair. The adrenaline that had kept him going was fading fast. He felt every injury, every bruise, every ache. His ship was barely functional. 8 crew members dead, dozens more injured. The Times, Defiant Times, would probably never fly again, but 50,000 people were alive because of what they had done here today. Daehyun approached him. The first officer had a bandage wrapped around his head and moved stiffly from his injuries. "Sir, when we started this mission, I thought you were crazy. I thought we were all going to die." "We almost did," Minho admitted, "but we didn't. You found a way. You actually beat an entire fleet with one ship." Daehyun shook his head in amazement. "The galaxy is going to remember this battle for a long time." Minho looked out at the stars through the damaged viewport. Somewhere out there, Admiral Vorak was reporting his defeat to the Krev Empire. News of this battle would spread across every civilized world. Humanity had announced itself as a power that couldn't be ignored. The medical bay of Admiral Han's flagship was busy with activity. Doctors and nurses moved between beds where injured crew members from the Times Defiant Times were being treated. Minho sat on one of the examination tables, while a doctor cleaned the cut on his forehead. He had refused treatment until all of his crew had been seen first. But Admiral Han had personally ordered him to get checked. "You're lucky, Captain," the doctor said as she worked. "A few centimeters lower, and this cut would have taken your eye. You have a concussion, 3 cracked ribs, and severe exhaustion. I'm prescribing 3 days of bed rest. I'll rest when my crew is taken care of, Minho replied. Your crew is being taken care of, Admiral Han said as she entered the medical bay. She was a stern-looking woman in her 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. And you'll follow Doctor's orders, Captain. That's not a request. Minho nodded reluctantly. He was too tired to argue anyway. Admiral Han pulled up a chair and sat down. She waited until the doctor finished, and left before speaking again. I've reviewed the battle recordings, she said quietly. Captain Park, what you did out there was either brilliant or insane. I haven't decided which. Both, probably, Minho admitted. 1 ship against 200. Those odds should have been impossible, but you destroyed or disabled 80 enemy vessels. You bought enough time for a complete evacuation. You proved that one determined human crew could stand against an empire. Admiral Han leaned forward. Do you understand what you've done? How this changes everything? Minho shook his head. He was just trying to save a colony. He hadn't thought about larger implications. For years, humanity has been treated like children by the older civilizations, Admiral Han explained. They saw us as weak, inexperienced, not worth taking seriously. The Krev Empire picked New Haven specifically because they thought we wouldn't fight back. They wanted to teach us to fear them. She smiled. Instead, you taught the galaxy to fear us. I didn't do it for politics, Minho said. I did it because it was right. I know. That makes it even more powerful. Admiral Han stood up. Rest now, Captain. We'll talk more later. Your crew will be fine. Most injuries are minor. Taeyang will need surgery on his shoulder, but he'll make a full recovery. After the Admiral left, Minho lay back on the bed and closed his eyes. But sleep wouldn't come. His mind kept replaying the battle, seeing the faces of the 8 crew members who had died. He knew their names. Ensign Borum Park from navigation, Engineer Min Jae Song, Security Officer Saman Choi, 5 others. They had followed him into an impossible battle and paid the ultimate price. Were 50,000 saved lives worth 8 lost ones? Minho wanted to believe yes, but the weight of those deaths pressed down on him like a physical thing. A voice interrupted his thoughts. Captain? He opened his eyes. Ji-won stood by his bed, her left arm in a proper cast now. Despite her injuries and exhaustion, she looked almost happy. You should be resting, Lieutenant, Minho said. So should you, sir. She pulled up a chair. I wanted to thank you for trusting my tactics, for listening when I said we could hack their systems. A lot of commanders wouldn't have taken advice from a junior officer. A lot of commanders would have followed orders and left the colony to die, Minho replied. We both made choices today. Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Sir, can I ask you something? At what point during the battle did you think we were actually going to win? Minho considered the question. Honestly, never. I knew from the start we couldn't defeat 200 ships. But we didn't need to win. We just needed to not lose long enough for help to arrive. That's a very thin line. All the best battles are won on thin lines. Over the next few hours, other crew members came to visit. Yuna brought a report on the Defiance times condition. The ship was salvageable, but would need months of repairs. Taeyang, groggy from surgery, managed a weak thumbs up before falling back asleep. Hana delivered messages from families of the evacuated colonists, all thanking the crew for saving their lives. Each visit reminded Minho that they had accomplished something extraordinary, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. 3 days later, Minho was cleared for duty. His ribs still ached, and he had an impressive bruise covering half his face, but he could function. Admiral Han called a meeting with him and his senior officers. They gathered in the Admiral's conference room. Besides Minho, there was Ji-won, Yuna, Dae-hyun, and several of Admiral Han's staff officers. Gentlemen, ladies, I'll get straight to the point, Admiral Han began. The battle at New Haven has had immediate and significant consequences. News has spread across the galaxy faster than we anticipated. every major civilization knows what happened. One human ship defeated a Krev armada. She activated a holographic display. It showed news feeds from dozens of alien worlds. The headlines were all similar. Humans defeat Krev Empire. Single human warship destroys 80 enemy vessels. New power emerges in the galaxy. The Krev Empire is in chaos, Admiral Han continued. Admiral Vorak was executed yesterday for his failure. 3 species that were considering surrendering to the Krev have now decided to resist. The Galactic Council has requested an emergency session to discuss human military capabilities. Minho shifted uncomfortably in his chair. This was getting political, and he didn't like politics. There's more, Admiral Han said. Earth's government wants to honor you and your crew. Medals, promotions, public ceremonies, Captain Park. They want to make you the face of humanity's military. Number 1. I'm a soldier, not a politician, Minho protested. You're both now, whether you like it or not. What you did has made you famous across the entire galaxy. Admiral Han's expression softened. But there's a problem. Military command is divided on what to do with you. What do you mean? Some admirals think you should be court-martialed. You disobeyed direct orders when you engaged the Krev fleet. Protocol was clear retreat and wait for backup. You chose to fight instead. Minho felt cold. He had known this might happen. Military discipline existed for good reasons. Officers who ignored orders, even for noble causes, set dangerous precedents. Other admirals want you promoted immediately, Admiral Han continued. They argue that your tactics won a historic victory and should be studied and taught at the Naval Academy. They want you to train the next generation of officers. What do you think, Admiral? Minho asked. Admiral Han looked at him for a long moment. I think you did what any good officer should do when faced with an impossible choice. You found a third option that no one else saw. You saved lives while following the spirit of your oath, if not the letter of regulations. She paused. But I also think you scared a lot of people in command. You proved that one creative officer with a good crew can change the course of history. That makes some people nervous. So what happens now? You'll face a formal inquiry. The board will review your actions and determine if you should face consequences. Given the outcome, I expect they'll be lenient, but you need to prepare yourself for some difficult questions. The meeting ended, and Minho returned to his temporary quarters. He spent the evening writing letters to the families of his 8 dead crew members. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. What could he say? Your son died following my orders. Your daughter gave her life because I chose to fight instead of retreat. They were heroes who saved 50,000 lives, but they're still gone and I'm still here. He had just finished the last letter when his door chimed. Daehyun entered, carrying a datapad. Sir, you need to see this, Daehyun said. He activated the pad, showing a news broadcast from Earth. A reporter stood in a crowded city square. Behind her, thousands of people had gathered, holding signs and banners. Many showed pictures of the Times defiant asterisk. Others had messages written on them. Heroes of New Haven. One ship. Infinite courage. Thank you, Captain Park. What you're seeing here has been repeated in every major city on Earth, the reporter said. People are celebrating what's being called the most significant military victory in human history. The crew of the UHSN Times, Defiant Times, has become a symbol of humanity's strength and determination. Daehyun turned off the broadcast. Captain, you're not just famous, you're a legend. People are naming their children after you. They're writing songs about the battle. You've become what humanity needed, proof that we can stand against anyone. Minho didn't know what to say. He had never wanted fame. He had just wanted to save lives. There's something else, Daehyun said hesitantly. We've been receiving messages from other human colonies. All of them saying the same thing, they feel safer now. They know that if they're threatened, humanity will fight for them. You gave them hope, sir. Hope. That was something worth fighting for. The formal inquiry took place a week later. Minho stood before a panel of 5 admirals in a formal hearing room. The proceedings were recorded and broadcast to military bases across human space. Everyone wanted to see what would happen to the hero of New Haven. The lead admiral, an old man named Admiral Dae-ho Kim, opened the proceedings. Captain Minho Park, you are here to answer questions regarding your actions at New Haven Colony. Specifically, your decision to engage a superior enemy force in violation of standing orders. How do you plead? Minho stood straight despite his healing injuries. I acknowledge that I disobeyed orders, sir. I don't deny it. Do you regret your decision? No, sir. I would make the same choice again. Murmurs ran through the room. Admiral Kim raised his hand for silence. Captain, explain your reasoning. Why did you choose to engage when the correct tactical decision was to retreat? Minho took a breath. This was his moment to explain. Sir, I took an oath when I joined the military. I swore to protect human lives. When I received that distress call, I had 2 choices. I could follow protocol, retreat, and let 50,000 people die. Or I could fight and give them a chance to survive. Following orders would have been easier, safer. But it would have been wrong. You're saying orders are optional? Admiral Kim asked sharply. No, sir. I'm saying that sometimes there are situations where the right choice isn't the easy one. My crew and I understood the risks. We chose to take them because those colonists deserved someone to stand for them. Another admiral spoke up. Captain Park, what you call the right choice resulted in 8 deaths among your crew. How do you justify those losses? The question hit Minho like a physical blow. But he had prepared for this. I can't justify them, sir, he said quietly. Those 8 people died following my orders. I carry that weight every day, but I also know that if we hadn't fought, 50,000 people would be dead instead, including children, including families. I made a choice to save as many lives as possible, knowing it might cost us everything. The admirals conferred quietly among themselves. Finally, Admiral Kim spoke. Captain Park, this board has reviewed all evidence. Your tactics were unorthodox but effective. Your leadership was exemplary. And your results speak for themselves. He paused. However, military discipline exists for good reasons. Officers cannot simply ignore orders whenever they disagree with them. The hearing room fell silent as Admiral Kim delivered his verdict. Minho stood at attention, prepared to accept whatever judgment came. He had made his choice at New Haven, and he would live with the consequences. This board finds that Captain Park acted with courage and initiative in an unprecedented situation, Admiral Kim announced. While his actions technically violated standing orders, they resulted in the complete evacuation of New Haven Colony with 0 civilian casualties. Furthermore, his tactical brilliance against overwhelming odds has enhanced humanity's reputation across the galaxy. The Admiral paused, and Minho felt the tension in the room building. Therefore, this board issues the following judgment. Captain Minho Park is hereby reprimanded for disobeying direct orders. This reprimand will remain in his permanent record. Admiral Kim's stern expression softened slightly. However, in recognition of his exceptional service and the lives saved by his actions, Captain Park is also awarded the Star of Valor, humanity's highest military honor. Additionally, he is promoted to the rank of Commodore, effective immediately. Shocked murmurs filled the room. Minho felt dizzy. Court-martialed and promoted in the same breath. Only the military could be that contradictory. Commodore Park, Admiral Kim continued, you have proven that sometimes the rules must bend to serve the greater good. But remember, this is an exception, not a precedent. You gambled everything on one battle and won. Don't expect to be that lucky twice. Yes, sir, Minho replied, his voice steady despite his surprise. Thank you, sir. The hearing concluded, and Minho was immediately surrounded by well-wishers and reporters. He pushed through them politely, needing air and space. Admiral Han found him in a quiet corridor outside the hearing room. Congratulations, Commodore, she said with a slight smile. Though I imagine you're feeling overwhelmed. That's putting it mildly, Minho admitted. Get used to it. Earth's government wants you to address the Galactic Council next month. They want you to represent humanity's military capabilities. Also, Minho groaned, I'm a soldier, not a diplomat. You're whatever humanity needs you to be now, Admiral Han said firmly. Like it or not, you've become a symbol. People across the galaxy are watching what you do next. The Krev Empire wants revenge. 3 other civilizations want to form defensive alliances with us. And a dozen species that previously ignored humanity now treat us with respect or fear. I just wanted to save a colony. And in doing so, you changed everything. Admiral Han placed a hand on his shoulder. Come. Your crew is waiting for you. She led him to a private reception room where the survivors of the Defiant Times had gathered. When Minho entered, they all stood and applauded. Jiwon, Yuna, Taeyang, with his arm in a sling, Hana, Daehyun, and 30 others who had fought alongside him. Speech! Someone called out. Minho shook his head. I don't have a speech prepared. Then just tell us what you're thinking, Jiwon said. Minho looked at each of them. These people had trusted him with their lives. 8 of their comrades hadn't come home. They deserved honesty. I'm thinking that we did something impossible together, he said quietly. We proved that humans don't surrender when the odds are against us. We don't abandon our own. We fight, even when logic says we should run. He paused. But I'm also thinking about the 8 people who aren't here. They gave everything for a colony they'd never visited. For people they'd never met. That's what makes us human. We care about strangers enough to die for them. Taeyang raised a glass. To the fallen, everyone echoed. They spent the evening sharing stories about the battle, remembering their lost friends, and slowly beginning to process everything that had happened. Minho learned details he hadn't known during the chaos of combat. How Yuna had manually rerouted power through damaged systems while fires burned around her. How Hana had translated Kree communications in real time, despite never having studied their language before. How the medical team had kept injured crew members alive using improvised techniques. Each story reminded him that heroism wasn't just about the captain's decisions. It was about every person doing their job under impossible circumstances. Later that night, Minho visited the medical bay one more time. Taeyang was scheduled for final surgery in the morning to repair nerve damage in his shoulder. Hey boss, Taeyang said when Minho entered. He looked pale and tired, but his spirit was unbroken. Or should I say, Commodore now. Minho is fine, Minho replied, pulling up a chair. How are you feeling? Like I flew through hell and barely made it out. Taeyang grinned. But I heard you gave a good speech at the inquiry. Stood up for what we did. We all stood up together. I just happened to be the one they asked. You know what the best part is? Taeyang said. Every pilot in the fleet is studying the maneuvers we pulled off. That debris field weave, the gas giant mine deployment, the emergency FTL jump, they're teaching that stuff at the academy now. We wrote the textbook on how to fight when you're outnumbered. I hope no one ever has to use those lessons, Minho said quietly. Maybe not. But if they do, they'll know it's possible to win. Because we proved it. 3 weeks later, Minho stood in the bridge of the Defiant Asterisk. The ship had been towed to Earth's largest orbital shipyard for repairs. Engineers swarmed over every deck, replacing damaged systems and patching hull breaches. The repairs would take months, maybe longer. Yuna walked beside him as they toured the damage. She had recovered from her radiation exposure but would never serve on a starship again. The doctors had been clear one more dose could kill her. She's a tough ship, Yuna said, running her hand along a scarred bulkhead. Most vessels would have fallen apart after what we put her through. She kept us alive, Minho agreed. That's what matters. They reached the section where the 8 crew members had died. The area had been sealed off and cleaned. But Minho could still imagine what had happened here. The explosive decompression, the desperate scramble to seal bulkheads, the final moments of his crew members. I'm going to make sure this section is preserved, Minho said. When they rebuild the ship, this will be a memorial. Yuna nodded. They deserve that. A week later, Earth's government held a formal ceremony to honor the crew of the Times, Defiant Asterisk. The families of the 8 fallen crew members were given medals posthumously. Minho presented each one personally, meeting the parents, spouses, and children of the people who had died under his command. Ensign Borum Park's mother held Minho's hands and cried, "Thank you for giving my daughter a chance to be a hero," she whispered. That moment broke something inside Minho. He had been holding himself together through force of will, but those words shattered his carefully maintained composure. Later, alone in his quarters, he finally allowed himself to grieve properly for the people he had lost. A month after the battle, Minho stood before the Galactic Council. The council chambers were massive, with representatives from 40 different civilizations arranged in a semicircle. Admiral Han stood beside him, along with Earth's ambassador. The council speaker, an ancient alien with blue skin and 4 arms, addressed the assembly. "We are here to discuss the incident at New Haven Colony. Captain, excuse me, Commodore Minho Park of Humanity has agreed to answer questions." For 2 hours, Minho fielded questions from alien representatives. Some were curious about human tactics. Others were concerned about humanity's newfound military reputation. A few were openly hostile, representing civilizations allied with the Krev Empire. "Commodore Park," said the Krev representative, "your actions resulted in the deaths of over 2,000 Krev military personnel. How do you justify this massacre?" Minho met the alien's eyes steadily. "Your fleet came to destroy a civilian colony, 50,000 innocent people. You gave them 1 hour to evacuate an entire world. That was impossible, and you knew it. You wanted them to die as a warning to humanity. We were enforcing the Emperor's decree. You were committing murder," Minho interrupted. "And when we stood up to protect our people, you learned that humanity doesn't respond to threats with surrender. We respond with defiance. If that makes us dangerous in your eyes, good. Maybe next time you'll think twice before threatening human civilians." The Krev representative started to respond, but the council speaker raised a hand for silence. "The council has heard enough. Commodore Park, you may step down." 3 days later, the council issued its ruling. They officially condemned the Krev attack on New Haven as an act of aggression against a civilian target. They also issued a formal warning to all civilizations. Humanity was now recognized as a Tier 2 military power, and attacks on human colonies would be treated as serious violations of galactic law. It wasn't everything Minho had hoped for, but it was something. New Haven was safe. Other human colonies would have protection. 6 months after the battle, the Times Defiant Times was almost fully repaired. Minho visited the ship regularly, watching as engineers restored her to combat readiness. But everyone knew the ship would never fly with her original crew again. Too much had changed. Jiwan had accepted a position at the Naval Academy, teaching advanced tactics. Her classroom was always full of eager students wanting to learn from someone who had lived through the impossible. Yuna led the design team for Earth's new defensive platforms. She couldn't go to space anymore, but she could protect those who did. Taeyong recovered from his surgery and became a test pilot. He pushed experimental ships to their limits, always looking for that edge that might save lives in the next battle. Hana joined the diplomatic corps, using her communication skills to build relationships with alien civilizations. Daehyun took command of a new destroyer, carrying the lessons of New Haven to his own crew. And Minho. Minho found himself in an office at military headquarters, coordinating humanity's expanding defensive network. It wasn't the life he had imagined, but it was the life he had chosen when he decided to fight at New Haven. On the first anniversary of the battle, Minho returned to New Haven Colony. The colonists had built a memorial on the spot where their planetary defense center had stood. 8 stones arranged in a circle, each bearing the name of a fallen crew member from the Times Defiant Asterisk. Thousands of colonists gathered for the ceremony. Children who had been saved by Minho's decision played among the stones. Parents who thought they would never see another sunrise stood with their families, alive because one ship had refused to abandon them. The colony's governor, an elderly woman named Yoonji Min, spoke to the crowd. 1 year ago, We faced extinction. The Krev Empire sent an armada to destroy us as a warning to all humanity. We were helpless. We were hours from death. She paused, looking at Minho. Then, one ship arrived. One captain who said no. One crew who chose to fight an entire fleet to give us time to escape. 8 of them gave their lives so that 50,000 of us could live. She turned to address Minho directly. Commodore Park, you told Admiral Vorak that humanity protects its own. Always. You proved that with your actions. This colony, these people exist because you kept that promise. We will never forget what you and your crew did for us. The crowd erupted in applause. Minho stood beside the memorial stones, looking at the names of his fallen crew members, 8 people who would never see this moment. Never know how many lives they had saved, never understand the impact their sacrifice had made, but Minho would remember. He would carry their memory forward, along with the lesson they had taught the galaxy. Humanity doesn't abandon its own. That evening, Minho stood on a hill overlooking the colony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. New homes had been built since the evacuation. Children laughed in the streets. Life had returned to New Haven. Stronger than before, a young boy approached Minho hesitantly. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old. "Excuse me, sir. Are you really the captain who saved us?" Minho knelt down to the boy's level. "I'm one of the people who helped." "Yes. My mom says we wouldn't be alive if you hadn't come. She says you fought 200 ships with just one." "I had a very brave crew," Minho said. "And we had something worth fighting for people like you and your family." The boy thought about this for a moment. "When I grow up, I want to be like you. I want to protect people too." Minho felt emotion welling up in his chest. This was why they had fought. Not for medals or promotions or fame. For this child's future. For the chance to inspire the next generation to stand up for what was right. "Then study hard," Minho said. "Be brave. Take care of the people around you. That's what being a protector means." The boy nodded seriously, then ran back to his mother. Minho watched him go, this child who existed because of choices made in the heat of battle. He thought about Admiral Kim's words at the inquiry. "Don't expect to be that lucky twice." But it hadn't been about luck. It had been about determination, creativity, and a crew willing to risk everything for strangers. Minho looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the Krev Empire was rebuilding its fleet. Other civilizations were watching humanity, wondering if New Haven had been a fluke or a preview of things to come. Let them wonder, Minho thought. Let them watch. Because if they threatened humanity again, they would learn the same lesson Admiral Vorak had learned. Humans don't back down. They don't surrender. And they don't abandon their own. One human warship had faced an entire fleet and won. The galaxy wasn't ready for that truth, but it had learned anyway. And that changed everything. As Minho walked back down the hill toward the colony, he passed the memorial stones one more time. He stopped and placed his hand on each one, silently promising the fallen that their sacrifice would never be forgotten. "We did it," he whispered. "We saved them all. Rest easy, friends. Your mission is complete." The wind carried his words away into the evening air. Above him, the stars shone bright, indifferent to the dramas of war and peace that played out beneath them. But among those stars, millions of beings now knew one simple truth: humanity had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same.